The rain fell in relentless sheets over Meridian Bay, turning the normally bustling coastal metropolis into a gray, deserted landscape. Elias Mercer wiped condensation from the window of his workshop, watching lightning illuminate the harbor where sleek intergalactic vessels bobbed alongside Earth's more modest fishing boats. At 35, Elias had built a reputation as one of the city's most talented mechanical engineers, but preferred solitude to society. His workshop, a converted lighthouse perched on the rocky shoreline, provided both a home and sanctuary, where he could tinker with his inventions undisturbed by the city's complicated human-alien relations. Tonight's storm was unusually fierce. With winds that howled through the cracks in the old stone walls, Elias stoked the workshop's small furnace, grateful for the warmth as he worked on modifying a deep-sea exploration drone for a corporate client. The sound came between thunderclaps of faint tapping at his door, so soft he almost missed it. Frowning, Elias grabbed a heavy wrench before cautiously approaching the entrance. Who would visit during such weather? When he pulled open the door, the wind nearly knocked him backward. Huddled against the frame was a figure unlike any he'd seen before. An elderly alien woman with delicate features and skin the color of twilight, a soft lavender darkening to deep purple along her trembling hands, stood swaying precariously. "Please," she whispered, her voice melodious despite her obvious distress. "Shelter." Her eyes, entirely silver with no visible pupils, blinked slowly as she struggled to remain upright. Without hesitation, Elias dropped the wrench and caught her as she collapsed forward. "Easy now," he murmured, guiding her inside. Though slight, her body felt unusually dense, as if gravity affected her differently. He settled her near the furnace, wrapping his thermal blanket around her quivering shoulders. Her skin seemed to shimmer under the workshop lights, tiny scales catching the glow like scattered diamonds. "I'm Elias," he offered, preparing a cup of hot tea. "You're safe here, Velazin," she replied, her translator pendant flickering as it converted her native tongue. "My ship. Emergency landing." "Separated from my daughter," Elias nodded, recognizing the characteristic speech patterns of the Australians. A peaceful species known for their advanced healing technologies. Their home planet orbited a distant binary star system, making them rare visitors to Earth. "The storm will pass by morning," he assured her, scanning for injuries. "We'll find your daughter then." Bellison's eyes widened suddenly. "The beacon," she said urgently, removing a small crystal from her robes. "She will find this signal." The crystal pulsed with an inner light, projecting unfamiliar symbols onto the workshop wall. Elias watched, fascinated, as the patterns shifted and realigned. "My daughter is Laronix," Velazin continued, her voice strengthening. "Royal emissary of House Astralis." Elias nearly spilled the tea he was offering. Even in his self-imposed isolation, he knew of the royal houses that governed the Intergalactic Alliance. House Astralis was ancient and powerful, their lineage traced back thousands of years. "Why would royalty visit Earth?" he asked, unable to mask his surprise. Velazin's expression grew solemn. "We carry something precious. Something broken that must be fixed." Before she could elaborate, the crystal flashed brilliantly, then settled into a steady pulse. "She comes," Velazin whispered, a smile warming her face. "Prepare yourself, Elias Mercer. My daughter does not trust easily, but we need your help more than you know." Outside, the storm began to subside, and Elias felt a strange certainty that his quiet life was about to change forever. Dawn broke over Meridian Bay with unusual clarity, the storm's aftermath leaving the air crisp and the sky painted in streaks of amber and lavender. Velazin had fallen asleep near the furnace, her breathing a gentle, melodic rhythm that filled the workshop. Elias sat at his workbench, examining the pulsing crystal with professional curiosity. Its composition defied Earth materials, its lattice structure reorganizing itself every few minutes. He was so absorbed that he didn't hear the approach until 3 sharp knocks echoed through the lighthouse. When he opened the door, Elias found himself momentarily speechless. Before him stood a tall, regal figure whose presence seemed to bend the morning light around her. Her skin was a rich purple, darker and more vibrant than Velazan's, with luminescent markings tracing elegant patterns along her temples and jawline. Silver eyes, bright and alert, assessed him with unmistakable suspicion. "You have my mother," she stated, her translator rendering her words in a melodious contralto. Elias stepped aside. "She's resting." "Please come in, Lyronox." Her eyebrows' delicate arcs of deeper violet rose slightly at his knowledge of her name. She moved past him with fluid grace. Her formal attire a close-fitting suit of material that seemed to absorb and reflect light, simultaneously rustling softly. "Mother," she whispered. Kneeling beside Velazan, who stirred and opened her eyes, they exchanged words in their native language. A cascade of musical tones that made Elias think of wind chimes and distant bells. Velazan gestured toward him repeatedly, her expression warm. Finally, Lyronox turned to face him, her posture slightly less rigid. "My mother says you provided shelter without question. House Astralis acknowledges this debt." "No debt necessary," Elias replied. "Anyone would have done the same." "You are mistaken," she said simply. "Few would risk involvement with matters beyond their world." Velazan spoke again in their language, and Lyronox's expression softened marginally. "We require your expertise," she continued, reaching into a compartment in her suit to withdraw a complex device roughly the size of a human heart. "This is the atmospheric harmonizer, an ancient relic that sustains the breathable atmosphere of Astralis." Elias approached cautiously, professional interest overcoming his nervousness. The device was clearly damaged, its crystalline components misaligned, and several connection points fractured. "What happened to it?" he asked. "Political sabotage," Lyronox replied tersely. "We have 3 cycles of your Earth weeks before irreversible damage begins on our homeworld. Our technologists attempted repairs, but the harmonizer was created using lost techniques, and why seek help on Earth? Surely there are more advanced worlds. The harmonizer contains elements similar to your planet's rare minerals. Your species has developed unique approaches to mechanical integration that might succeed where our more sophisticated methods have failed." Velazan added something that made Lyronox frown. "Also," she added reluctantly, "my mother had a vision that our solution would be found here." Elias examined the device more carefully. "I need to study this thoroughly before attempting any repairs." "We have little time," Lyronox said, tension evident in her voice. "Then we should begin immediately," Elias replied, already clearing space on his workbench. "I'll need to know everything about how it functions." Lyronox studied him silently before nodding once. "Very well, Elias Mercer. Our world's fates are now intertwined." As morning light streamed through the workshop windows, illuminating dust motes and sea spray, Elias realized that the comfortable solitude he had built around himself was about to be irreversibly disrupted by this purple-skinned emissary and her broken treasure. 3 days of intense work had transformed Elias's orderly workshop into a landscape of scattered tools, holographic projections, and dismantled components. Velazan had recovered enough to return to their cloaked ship in the nearby cove, but Lyronox remained, working alongside Elias with single-minded focus. "The primary crystal matrix is misaligned by approximately 2 microns, Elias muttered, adjusting his magnification visor. "If we could just, it will fracture if forced," Lyronox interrupted, her hand briefly touching his to stop the adjustment. The contact sent an unexpected warmth up his arm. Elias glanced at her profile, struck by how the perpetual furrow between her brows had softened over their days of collaboration. Initially formal and distant, Lyronox had gradually revealed herself to be brilliant and unexpectedly witty, her insights complementing his unorthodox approach to the repairs. "We need a break," he declared, setting down his microcalibrators. "Even your superior Australian physiology needs rest." A smile, the first he'd seen, briefly touched her lips. "You mock me." "I observe you," he corrected, moving to open the lighthouse windows. The evening air rushed in, carrying the scent of salt and distant rain. "Come, watch the sunset. It helps clear the mind." To his surprise, she joined him at the window. The setting sun painted the horizon in colors remarkably similar to her skin, purples and magentas stretching across the bay. Your world has unexpected beauty, she admitted softly. So does yours, I imagine. She turned to look at him, silver eyes reflecting the fading light. Australis has 3 moons and a perpetual aurora in the northern hemisphere. The crystal forests sing when the binary stars align. Her voice carried a longing that transcended species. But lately, with the harmonizer failing, the skies have begun to darken. Tell me about your home, Elias said, genuinely curious. Something in his tone must have resonated with her, because Lyra began to speak with uncharacteristic openness. She described floating cities anchored to ancient mountain peaks, libraries containing millions of years of knowledge, and the weight of responsibility that came with her royal lineage. The royal houses expect me to accept a political union soon, she revealed, staring at the horizon, to strengthen alliances during this time of vulnerability. Elias asked carefully. What I want has never mattered, she replied. My duty is to Australis. The simplicity of her resignation stirred something protective in Elias. Everyone deserves to choose their own path. Luranox turned to him, her expression unreadable. Even you, Elias Mercer. You who hide from your own kind in this isolated place. The observation struck uncomfortably close to truth. I had ... losses. People I couldn't save with all my engineering skills. Understanding dawned in her silver eyes. Without warning, she reached out and placed her palm against his chest, just over his heart. The gesture, he somehow knew, was deeply significant in her culture. We all carry fractures, she said softly, like the harmonizer. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. When she finally withdrew her hand, Elias felt its absence acutely. We should continue working, she said, her voice carrying new warmth as night fell over Meridian Bay. They returned to the harmonizer with renewed purpose. But something fundamental had shifted between them. Connection that defied the vast differences of their worlds and origins. Under the workshop lights, their hands occasionally brushed as they worked, and neither pulled away quite as quickly as before. The 7th night of their collaboration brought rain again. Gentler than the storm that had first delivered Valezin to Ilias's doorstep. The harmonizer now sat partially reassembled on the workbench, its crystalline matrix pulsing with renewed strength. Elias had discovered that his knowledge of Earth's deep sea pressure systems provided unexpected insights into the device's atmospheric calibration. We're close, he said, stretching his stiff shoulders as Lyranox entered the workshop with 2 steaming mugs. She had taken to preparing an Australian tea using supplies from their ship, the herbal scent reminiscent of lavender and cinnamon. Your progress exceeds expectations, she admitted, handing him a mug. Her fingers lingered against his for a moment longer than necessary. These small touches had become more frequent, each one sending a pleasant current through Elias's body. Our progress, he corrected, sipping the alien brew. I couldn't have understood the quantum resonance patterns without you. Lyranox settled beside him, her formal attire replaced by simpler clothing that reminded Elias of liquid mercury. In the past week he had learned to read the subtle shifts in her expressions, the slight tilt of her head when curious, the barely perceptible purse of her lips when concentrating. The council will be pleased, she said, though something in her tone suggested ambivalence. You don't sound thrilled about returning. She traced the rim of her mug thoughtfully. I found unexpected freedom here. Before Elias could respond, a high-pitched whine emanated from the harmonizer. The device's glow intensified, then flickered erratically. Lyranox was on her feet instantly. Something's wrong, she said sharply. The secondary oscillation pattern is destabilizing. Elias grabbed his diagnostic scanner, but before he could use it, the workshop windows imploded inward. Glass shards scattered across the floor as 3 figures in sleek, dark suits materialized inside. Their faces were obscured by helmets that reflected the room like fractured mirrors. House Nixerin sends regards, one intruder announced. Voice distorted through their translator, Lyranox moved with astonishing speed, placing herself between the intruders and the harmonizer. Political disputes should not endanger an entire planet, Tarek. The lead figure removed their helmet, revealing features similar to Lyra's, but with skin the color of midnight blue with silver markings. This isn't about politics, cousin. It's about succession. With the harmonizer damaged beyond repair, the Council will have no choice but to accept House Nixaron's alternative technology and our leadership. Elias edged closer to his tool rack, fingers closing around a heavy wrench. "Your timing's off," he called out. "We're nearly finished with repairs." The blue-skinned alien turned to him with contempt. The human mechanic. How quaint. What happened next unfolded in a blur. Tarek raised a weapon. Lyronox lunged forward with a cry in her native tongue, and Elias threw himself toward the workbench. His body collided with the nearest intruder as an energy pulse sizzled through the air where he had stood.
Ow!
Lyronox shouted, grappling with Tarek. Understanding instantly, Elias rolled across the floor and grabbed the device, cradling it protectively. The third intruder advanced on him, weapon raised. "Give it to me, human," they demanded. Instead, Elias twisted a nearby valve on his workshop wall. Pressurized steam erupted from the pipes with a deafening hiss, filling the room with blinding vapor. He heard curses and confusion as he crawled toward the workshop's rear exit. The harmonizer clutched to his chest. Outside, the rain soaked him instantly. Elias ran toward the rocky path leading to the cove where the Australian ship was hidden. Behind him, energy weapons discharged, illuminating the mist with flashes of purple light. Suddenly, Lyronox was beside him, blood the color of amethyst trailing from a cut on her cheek. She grabbed his arm, pulling him behind a large boulder as energy blasts struck the ground around them. "Are you injured?" she demanded, eyes scanning him frantically. The harmonizer. She examined the device in his arms, relief flooding her features. Intact. Your quick thinking saved it. Then, to his complete surprise, she pressed her forehead against his, their breath mingling in the cold air. "And you." The moment was shattered by another blast hitting their shelter. Lyronox pulled back, her expression hardening into determination. "We need to reach the ship. Mother can activate its defenses." Elias nodded. Adrenaline and something else, something warmer and more profound coursing through him as they prepared to make their dash. Through the rain and darkness, toward safety and uncertainty in equal measure. The Australian ship hung, suspended above Meridian Bay, its crystalline hull refracting the morning sunlight into prismatic patterns across the water's surface. From the lighthouse balcony, Elias watched as the vessel's energy field rippled like liquid glass, cloaking technology temporarily deactivated. Inside the workshop, the fully repaired harmonizer pulsed with steady blue-violet light, its song a barely perceptible hum that resonated in perfect harmony with itself. 3 days had passed since the attack. Tarek and his accomplices had retreated after Velazin activated the ship's defensive systems, but not before vowing to continue their pursuit. "It is time," Lyronox said softly, appearing in the doorway. Her wounds had healed remarkably quickly, leaving only the faintest trace on her cheek. She wore a formal attire again, her royal insignia prominently displayed. Elias nodded, unable to form words around the heaviness in his chest. They had spent these past days in a strange limbo completing the harmonizer's repairs while navigating the undeniable connection that had formed between them. Stolen touches, conversations that lasted until dawn, and once. As they calibrated the final sequence, a brief but electric press of her lips against his. "Your world needs you," he said finally, placing his hand on the harmonizer. "And this needs to go home." Velazin entered, her frailty now entirely gone. She observed them with knowing eyes before speaking in her native tongue. Lyra responded sharply, then seemed chastened by whatever her mother said next. "What was that about?" Elias asked. Lyra hesitated. "My mother suggested you might accompany us to Australis. I told her it was impossible, is it?" The question escaped before he could consider its implications. Her silver eyes widened. "You would leave your world? Your life?" Elias looked around the workshop, his sanctuary and prison for the past 5 years. After his sister's accident, he had retreated here, using isolation as a shield against further loss. But these past 10 days had awakened something he thought long dead. Possibility. "What life?" he asked quietly. "I hide here, fixing things because I couldn't fix what mattered most. But with you," he shook his head, struggling to articulate the transformation. "With you, I remembered what it means to matter to someone, to make a real difference." Lyra approached slowly, her expression unusually vulnerable. "The journey is one way, Elias. Interstellar travel taxes, human physiology. Return would not be possible for many years. I know. Council may not welcome you." "I'm pretty good at winning people over," he replied with a half-smile. "I won over you, didn't I?" A blush darkened her purple skin. "You presume much human. Tell me I'm wrong." Instead of answering, she took his hand and placed it flat against her chest, mirroring the gesture she had made days earlier. Beneath his palm, he felt the strong, rapid beating of her heart, or whatever the Australian equivalent was. "In our culture," she said softly, "this means entrusting someone with your true self. I have never done this before." Velezin made a sound suspiciously like a knowing chuckle before discreetly exiting the workshop, leaving them alone. Elias stepped closer, his free hand coming up to trace the luminescent markings along Lyra's temple. "I would cross stars for you," he whispered. "Not just for adventure or new worlds, but for this whatever is happening between us and your world." She asked, though her body leaned into his touch. "Your species? Earth will continue without one reclusive engineer," he said. "But Australis needs the harmonizer. And maybe you could use someone who sees you as more than a royal emissary." Her answer came not in words, but in the closing of distance between them. This kiss was not brief like the first, but deep and searching, transcending the differences in their biology and origin. When they finally parted, her silver eyes shimmered with emotion. "The ship departs at midday," she said, her voice husky. Elias glanced once more around his workshop, mentally cataloging what little he would take. His tools, some books, photographs of his family. The life he was leaving behind suddenly seemed small compared to the universe opening before him. 3 hours later, as Meridian Bay shrunk beneath them and Earth became a blue-green jewel suspended in darkness, Elias stood at the ship's viewport with Lyra's hand firmly in his. The harmonizer, secured in the vessel's core, sang its ancient song as they accelerated toward distant stars. "Are you certain?" Lyra asked one final time, her fingers tightening around his. Elias looked not at the receding Earth, but at her as unexpected visitor who had become his future. "Some journeys choose us," he replied. "This one feels right." The ship entered faster than light travel, the viewport filled with streams of light resembling purple and silver ribbons, intertwining across the void not unlike their two lives, now bound together across the vast expanse of space, heading toward a shared horizon neither could have imagined alone.